We're going over the 10 most fun Commander cards released in 2023.
I'm Mia, and I like giving the cats holiday gifts.
I'm BZ. I like giving other people presents. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. They got a website. You can buy Magic cards there, and when you go there at checkout, use the code
NERDS
to save 5%. Whatever the total is, take 5% off of it. That's what you pay with our code.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you want to save 5% off your entire order, you can use the code
NERDS
at checkout to save 5 whole percentages.
5% of your real money tax dollars that you spend maybe on other Christmas gifts. Who knows what's going on? Moxfield. You'll hear from them later, but they're really great. Guess where you're going to hear from them from, and you will get no prizes. Next, happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today.
Today we're going to be talking about some of our most fun cards for Commander in 2023.
We have a few honorable mentions that we couldn't quite agree belong on this list, but mine is Sting, the Glinting Dagger. It untaps a creature each combat, so you can get a lot of usefulness, utility out of it. I like the idea of it. The rest of it is who cares, against first strike, whatever. But I like it's a pretty cheap card. You can untap. I want to untap Sfella Ice Shaper, make a bunch of manaless. That's what I want to do.
My honorable mention is Invasion of Alara. I think this is nutty. For Wooburg, you're going to do so much. Basically, you're going to look at 2 cards. You're going to take 1 in the hand, 1 to play for free, and then you're going to it's 5 damage, you flip the back, you get counters, you get free spells, you get to remove something. I have it in my Door to Nothingness deck, and it's so much fun to be able to just play it and flip it almost immediately.
I do agree this card is fun, but I just deducted it some points because it's only Wooburg. But those are honorable mentions. We can get to the actual number 10. These are all very fun. Not necessarily the best Magic cards in the world, but we think these are the 10 you're going to have the most fun with if you put in your deck. Number 10, Dance with Calamity, 7 in a red sorcery. Shuffle your library as many times as you choose. You may exile the top card of your library. If the total mana value of cards exiled this way is 13 or less, you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Now, BZ, you might ask, what happens if I go over? Nothing. The spell does nothing if you bust.
I think you have to be really careful about this and know your deck very, very well. I want to put this in a deck that I play Fevered Suspicion and maybe try this out in addition or in replacement to that. But this is a tough one considering I do play a lot of splashy spells in that deck. So if it goes land 7, I'm going to have a really hard choice.
Yes, this card is very bad. I think this card is pretty awful, but it gets you thinking. It just makes me think I would love to resolve this card. I don't care that it's bad. It just looks really fun. It's like a little mini game you can play. But assuming you don't get completely hosed by this card, you're up to 3 mana value total, and then you flip a 15 drop and then lose, you could get 7, 8, 9 mana value out of this, and it costs 8, so it seems functional enough. And I really want to play this card in something.
I could see this in as a top end to a deck that's running a lot of little beaters and mono red or something. That way you can get just 6 to 8 bodies on the field for free. That would be really sick.
For free. It's only 8 mana, and then it's for free. Everything after that is just free.
Number 9 is Nesting Dovehawk. 3 white for a 2/2 flyer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, populate. Whenever a creature tokens enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it. Now, that part doesn't really matter as much, I don't think, but being able to populate consistently is really powerful.
There are not many cards that let you populate for a reasonable mana value. The cheapest way to populate is a white sorcery for 1 mana that just says populate. That card's garbage. I don't want to play that card because the opportunity cost, the fail case, that card is horrendous. But this is all right, it's a creature. I can play it before I play tokens, or I can play it after, and I still get a lasting effect every single turn. This card's sweet. And also just kind of grows big. It's definitely secondary. In the late game, this thing will just be like a 10/10, and then it'll have to be answered, which is sad for us because we just want to populate. I just want to make more weird tokens.
I do love the fact that you don't have to hit with it. You don't have to attack with it. So it's just immediately, if you play it before combat, you get the token. I really like the opportunity of that.
Yeah, what really gets me going with this card is making a token copy of it, because then you just start making more and more and more and more and more. And if your opponents don't do something, they're dead.
I mean, it's not legendary, so that would just be a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Number 8 here is a card that you may have heard of. It's Moxfield.com. Super early in the video, but we love Moxfield.com. It's the best way to build your commander decks, Oathbreaker decks, standard decks on the internet. So go over to Moxfield, follow along, click create an account, click Nitpicking Nerds profile, click follow, then upload all of your decks. You can even upload from Redacted site, the site we never use, to make the exporting process easier.
If you want to look at these cards on there, you can actually see the prices of them, what sets they were in, and just every single printing that they've had too. All these cards are very new that are going to be in this video. So if you're wondering about what they do and you want to just look them up, add them to your Moxfield list and then just click on them and it'll show you everything.
Moxfield, it does it all. It does it all. All right, the real number 8, no more fooling. It's up the Beanstalk, or Beans for short. One in a green enchantment. When it enters the battlefield and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, you draw a card. So it replaces itself right away, which is like sneaky good. I mean, this card is now banned in Modern. Instead of the One Ring, this card is like the more bannable than that card, but it actually is very mellowed out in Commander. It's a lot fairer when you start getting the engine going, which is why I think this card is not miserable like Modern, really fun.
I like how he says it's going to be fair and then plays this in a Cascade deck. You know, Apex Devastator flips a bunch of stuff. It's like, oh, that was fair, right? 5 cards, 5 spells.
Yeah, you just start
12 mana.
Cascading is great. You like any way to cheat casting a 5-drop. Solitude, you know, just like the Modern format. Free counter spells, yeah, maybe that's a little bit lame, but I want to cast big monsters and just draw, like fill my hand up. It's a cool restriction and like a build around that we don't see a lot of. It's like that Karuga sort of design space.
I think that in big mono green stompy decks or just green stompy decks in general, this is a lot of value, especially just coming down for 2 mana.
And just replacing itself. So even if they kill it right away, you got your card back.
Number 7 is a card that can go into any Enchantress deck, so long as it's running white. Onto Spirit Dancer. 5 mana for a 3/3. Whenever enchantment ETBs under your control, you can create a token copy of it, but only once per turn.
This gets weird.
It can go so crazy, especially if you stack these left and right.
Yeah, it kind of just says whatever you're doing, make it really powerful. You got to pay like a decent upfront cost. You're not cheating anything. This isn't broken. It's a 5 mana do nothing that then has to have an enchantment enter, and then you get your value's worth. But like auras, you start doubling things up. You can put auras on weird creatures. Sagas, you can get another saga of something. Enchantment creatures just in general. Like wild growth, get another wild growth. Give flash to your enchantments and then just start surprise 2 things on your turn. Surprise 2 things on the next turn. And this card, really weird, really cool design space. I love everything about it. I have it in a deck, and I've been pretty happy with it.
I just couldn't wait to see this if you made a copy of this, like if you had Nesting Dovehawk and you were able to make a copy and then just populate it so you got 10 billion copies.
Well, that's the thing, too. If you, like, make a token that's a copy of this and an enchantment, it triggers itself. So you just get to start making more. That's like, I don't know if we're flirting with infinites, but that's really weird. And I like weird cards that are also strong. That's what Commander's all about.
I mean, bare minimum, it's a ton of value, too. So, like, not that Enchantress decks really needed the extra value. I think they're just value city, you know, draw a card, play an enchantment, draw a card. But especially with this, it's like, okay, draw a card and then get 2 enchantments out of it, you know.
Yeah, you finish them off with like 2 Eldrazi conscriptions. That should do the trick, right? All right, number 6. It's the Millennium Calendar. What a weird card. 1 mana artifact. Whenever you untap 1 or more permanents during your untap step, put that many time counters on this thing, 2 untap it, double the number of time counters on it, and when there's 1,000 or more time counters on this, sacrifice it, and each opponent loses 1,000 life.
I mean, this is the type of like door to nothingness type deal. It's an almost impossible win con, but working up to it. And the one time you get it, it's going to be so insane. You're going to remember it forever.
Yeah, this is the coolest card made in a really long time. It's like the almost like the Mayan calendar that like ticks up to the end of the world, right? It's like, it's 2012, baby. You're going down. I like that you can double the number of counters. You kind of set it there and you forget it, so it's not a huge investment. And then once you like maybe start Clock of Omensing or Seaborn Musing or whatever, getting more doubles of it until eventually opponents go, that's at 100. We're like almost dead.
This is definitely a tough win con to have, but it is fun. I also do enjoy the fact that you don't have to wait till upkeep to make everyone lose 1,000 life. Like if you hit 1,000 life on someone else's turn, it'll trigger right away. It's not one of those, like if you have 40 artifacts at your upkeep, you win the game. You don't have to wait that long. If
the Millennium Calendar is at 999 counters and you're the opponent and you proliferate, you are obligated to tick it up. I don't care if you lose. That's the rule of this card. I think it's in the Gatherer as like a rule.
Actually, it's like 1041.7.
That is the rule. That is the official rule of Millennium Calendar. Yeah. Weird build around, very Helix Pinnacle-y, very door to nothingness-y. Totally worth trying. Everyone's got to try this card once.
Number 5 is really chaotic, but it's a weird but cool removal spell, if you want to call it that. It's Guff Rewrites History. 2 and a red for an instant. For each player, choose target non-enchantment, non-land permanent the player controls. They shuffle them into their libraries. Each player who controlled one of those exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card, put the rest on the bottom in a random order, and they can cast it without paying their mana cost. So it's kind of like a weird chaos warp where they can't whiff for everybody.
Right. It gets you. So you can turn your worst thing into another spell. So this kind of replaces itself in that way. But then each opponent is going to get something. I mean, I'm assuming they've all got a threat, right? I'll take, hit Mirari's Wake. I'll hit your 6/6 flyer, and I'll hit your Planeswalker. It's nice to get those off the board. On average, they're not going to hit something scarier than something that's worth removing, especially in like the green decks with like Wild Growth and Birds of Paradise. So you got a good chance. But and then the fun factor probably just cranks this up to I'm definitely playing this, or I'm definitely trying this in like weird decks.
I think it's pretty interesting the fact that it does say non-enchantment, though.
They fixed the rule of color pie breaking in Chaos Warp had.
Because that's what I would be putting Chaos Warp into my red decks for, because it's like enchantments are really tough to get rid of. So it's like that makes it a little less playable for me, but it is still very chaotic and very fun. And I think way more playable than like Goblin Game or something. Something that everyone just pulls out and you go, ugh, this again?
Yeah, you'll notice that I was trying to list off 3 random things that this would hit that would be threatening. One of the 3 that I listed was an enchantment, and you just can't do that. So like that is going to hold back Guff Rewrite's History from being maybe more playable. But gosh darn it, if you're looking for a surge of serotonin, put this spell on the stack.
I wouldn't mind trying to get everyone's biggest creature, flip until they hit something, and it's like, oh, you have like a treasure token or something, and you flip it into something really awesome. That might not be too bad.
Who could really be mad at this either? It's like, I don't get mad at Chaos Warp. I go, hey, I got the chance of something. And I'm not going to get mad at Guff Rewrites History either.
I'm really happy that this isn't like Atali, though, where it's like on a body so you can just keep flickering it. I think this is like the more fair version of the new Atali.
This Guff Rewrites History, you heard it here first, is the fair version of Atali.
Okay, maybe scrap that, but like, do you get what I'm saying?
Nope, that's it. That's the takeaway from this video. Actually, there's 4 more, though. Number 4 is bigger on the inside. 3 green-red, enchants artifacts or lands, and a permanent taps for 2 mana, and the next spell the person casts from this mana has Cascade this turn. That made me, when I read this, I went, there's just so much to do with it. I'm thinking, do I want to enchant a land and try to untap it and add this multiple times and then spend all the mana on one spell to give it like 4 instances of Cascade? Or do I want to play an artifact creature that I can untap really easily? Or do I want to just play it and cast it, play Fair Magic and only Cascade once? This thing gives you 2 mana right back right away. It's just, you can tell it has me excited.
I mean, I think I want to try it in my door deck, considering it can enchant artifacts. So if you have like a Clock of Omens type effect, you can kind of abuse it and keep cascading into stuff. So if you have a lot of artifacts, you can keep cascading into artifacts, use them with Clock of Omens to untap the artifact you put this on, and keep going.
This thing, there's a lot of potential. I thought it was 4 mana at first, which I think would be pushing it a little bit, because 5 mana still has me wanting to test this. It's actually ordered right now. It's slated to go in one of my red-green decks. And I know this card's going to be super fun.
Are you putting in your Cascade deck?
That too. Like, I got 2 things that this needs to go in, and I don't know how I don't have them already.
I think Doctor Who had a lot of weird cards, but this one is like fun, and I can also see it being played in non-niche decks.
Right, and it's not busted. Not by a long shot. Mia, this card I see you play all the time, and it actually just killed me in a game.
I was playing it in Draft when this was a thing. I'm playing it in my Commander decks now. It's C-double. 2 blue for a spell that can't be copied. You choose one. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you could choose both. You can either copy target spell, and you could choose new targets for the copy, or you can create a token that's a copy of target creature. Now, if you're playing in a very graveyard-heavy meta, or it's really late in the game, or if you're like me who can fill the graveyard of other people very easily, this is just value left and right. So being able to just hold up it up for somebody's spell that you can like, oh, counter their spell. So being able to hold this up for an opponent's really powerful spell and then just creating a copy of a target creature you have or just someone else's, it's a lot of value for 4 mana.
At worst, this is like a 4 mana instant speed clone with an extra blue pip, and I'm not even that upset at just that alone. And then the gravy on top is when they have 8 cards in the graveyard, which is very possible. You just get to go bonkers. You get a 2-for-1. You get some big creature with an ETB. And what's unique about this card also is that it says copy target spell. It's one of the only, I would say, I'd wager a guess, one of the only Magic cards that says copy target spell. because creature spells and permanent spells are now game for that. Usually it's only instant or sorcery, so this thing it casts an even wider net with just the copy spell mode. This thing is super fun. It's just a lot of like clones introduce a new factor to your deck that you can't get. Oh, my deck is like a blue-white blink deck. Well, my opponent just played Grave Titan. I can now get a Grave Titan and get that ETB trigger.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That's what I'd want. But
that'd be broken.
I've used this in multiple ways. I've held it up as a counter to a counter spell, copying the counter spell that's targeting my thing and then also targeting the best creature on the board. I just targeted BZ's Ewit to get something back and then also copied my own spell. It's very versatile if you can have 8 or more cards in someone's graveyard. And I love the fact that it's not counting types among graveyards either. It's just straight up cards.
We got 2 more entries on our top 10 most fun list, and they are both very expensive Magic cards. Number 2 is Last March of the Ents. 8 mana sorcery, can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Get a gigantic toughness, which is kind of harder to do. It's harder to do than the power side of it. And then you get rewarded by just whatever you draw, just in play for free.
I mean, everyone loved the flashy spells, which is why this is so high up on the list. But it's so much value too. You have a little combat trick, and then you go, "Oh, by the way, here's 10 creatures because I just drew like 10 cards."
Yeah, and they can't be countered. Adds a nice little bit of security. This card is in no way broken. It is really flashy though. People got really excited about it, and I think it makes for crazy, swingy, big plays that like decide the game.
I have in my Selvala deck, and I was able to just win with it, even though I only cast it with like 4 toughness on the board because of that advantage and just being able to cheat out so much mana. It actually just swung the game into my favor on turn like 5.
Yeah, even if you only have a 4/4 in play, if you have a gigantic hand, it doesn't matter. Draw 4, put out 30 mana value worth of creatures. At Last March of the Ents, super high potential without really, I think, too much of the feel bad. I don't feel bad against this card.
I think so too. If you have enough card draw in your deck, or if you just have a really nasty hand, this will just cheat out so much mana and will get you a lot of value.
All right, number 1 we've talked about, and we like this a lot, but maybe you didn't know it was going to be our pick for the most fun card this year. It's Breach the Multiverse. 7 mana sorcery. Each player mills 10. Then for each player, you choose a creature or planeswalker in their graveyard and reanimate them. And they are Phyrexians, which nobody cares about. But 7 mana, everybody mills 10, and you get the best 4 things. It's a 4-for-1. It's a pretty good value card. People have lost to this. We've lost and won with this card many times now. A lot of people in the comments are like, geez, this thing is the real deal. And it definitely is. But I think, above all, this is a very fun card to resolve.
I like the fact that it is the best card or the best creature out of anyone's graveyard, not just out of the cards that are milled. I had a friend who just borrowed my weird deck that fills up everyone's graveyards, and the thing he was most excited for was the fact he was like, I just cast Breach the Multiverse. It was awesome. I'm like, yeah, it was awesome.
That's the other thing is you don't know what you're going to hit. So you're going to hit one thing that's really good for you because it's your deck. You're getting your best creature back. But then you kind of get to figure out, like, what are my opponents? What's my best thing in my opponent's graveyard? Oh, they've got a Grave Titan. Wow, that's great. I'm playing zombie tokens. I'm playing giant Kindred deck. Wow, great. Or, good cards even that you could get back.
Sometimes it is a whiff. I've gotten a little mana dork here, but sometimes I've gotten multiple Eldrazi. I've gotten Shieldred the Apocalypse from my own deck. It's really crazy what you can get, and you're always, or almost always at least, going to be getting more than 7 mana worth of value. Yeah,
these cards are all super duper fun. If you are looking for the top Commander cards of the year, not the funnest, but the bestest, that's a video we have right here. I think you can get a lot of value out of it. Maybe some of these are going to be on there. Probably not. Mia, what's the tip of the day?
Don't forget to wrap your Christmas gifts.